there, I'm Elizabeth and I am an online health and fitness coach, and in this video I'll tell you a little bit about how I got started with coaching. So you're probably seeing this video as part of an invitation to join me on a webinar to learn more about coaching, so it makes sense that you'd want to know a little more about me. Who is this Elizabeth person inviting you to a webinar, and why should you trust her? I promise to give it to you straight. This is me, unadulterated. Should you choose to join my coaching mentorship or even my coaching team, this is the same person you'll be working with day in and day out. So to start to explain what led me to coaching, let me paint a picture for you of who I was in my 20s. From the outside, I looked like I was doing great. I graduated from Harvard and I was working as a newspaper reporter and I was getting regular promotions in my job. But I have to tell you, I was not happy. It's painful for me even to look back on that time in my life. Well, it certainly was a learning experience. I was in and out of relationships, just basically looking for someone that could make me happy because I wasn't able to find that peace inside of myself. And then when I was 25 years old, I went to my first yoga class. The only reason I was there was that I felt like I needed to stretch out my muscles from my daily 3-mile runs. I was not interested in the mental and spiritual benefits in the least. But almost right away, I noticed that I was no longer having trouble sleeping on the days that I would go to yoga class. And I noticed that my feelings of anxiety seemed more manageable. So yoga was my first introduction to the idea that exercise should feel good and that it wasn't something to be done as punishment. Now, I actually had been an aerobics instructor prior to getting into yoga, but when I would go to step and kickboxing classes, I always was approaching it from the mindset of, what do I need to do to burn off the calories I took in yesterday? What can I do to get skinnier? For my whole life, I had thought that the only way to keep my body in check was to hate my body into submission. With yoga, I learned to love my body, and I learned that it was okay to let go and do what felt good, that I was not going to become morbidly obese if I listened to my body. I also had a history of eating disorders. First it was restricting, and later on it was compulsive overeating. And with yoga, I learned that I didn't have to fear my own hunger. I could listen to my body's desires, and they weren't going to destroy me. Yoga was such a powerful practice for me that I started teaching yoga, and I spent several years in a rigorous teacher certification program. Now, I later learned that there was another reason for a lot of my misery and my emotional ups and downs in my 20s. After a bunch of destructive behavior and a broken engagement, I finally drew the line and I started seeing a therapist. Ultimately, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I started taking medication, and I continued seeing a therapist weekly. And I also started attending Overeaters Anonymous meetings at this time, and I started to feel like I could live without binging. So yoga was the tool that helped me understand that it was okay for me to want to be happy and to keep working until I felt happy. And I tell you all of this not just for the gratuitous shock value of sharing all of the pain that I went through. I share it because I know there are people out there who can relate, and that you watching this might be one of those people. From the outside, people might seem content or happy, but we just have no idea what's going on the inside. So if you can relate to some of the difficulties I experienced, I want to tell you that there is hope. Even if you've been dealing with the same issues for years and years and years, it is possible for life to be different. Things can change. I've seen it in my own life, and I see it all the time with my clients. Now, we all have our issues that we're dealing with, and a lot of those issues are with us our entire lives. For me, that list includes issues with food and body image, as well as struggling with low mood and struggling to feel happy at times. But I can tell you that I've committed to always doing the work to feel my best, whether it's seeing a therapist, taking medication, getting regular exercise, getting enough sleep, changing my diet, whatever it takes, I am committed. And that's what coaching represents to me, really, a daily commitment to my own health, because I'm reminded on a daily basis that I serve as a role model and a guide to others. Now, Jumping ahead to this past year, my life took a really unexpected turn when I went in for a surgery that was supposed to be minor and routine, and I ended up being in the hospital for 3 weeks and out of work for 3 months. I had an allergic reaction to a substance that was used during the surgery, and I required multiple blood transfusions when my blood refused to clot. It's hard to describe just how bad a shape I was in right after all of this happened. I had to learn to walk all over again. I had a gaping open wound on my abdomen, and I had nurses, even after I was released from the hospital, nurses would come to my house daily to change the dressing and treat my wound to minimize the risk of infection. I had to go to dialysis treatment 3 times a week for 4 hours each time. And not only is dialysis boring and time-consuming, it's also gross and it's scary. They take your blood and they circulate it outside of your body for cleaning because the purpose of dialysis is your kidneys are not able to do their job of cleaning the blood themselves, so dialysis cleans your blood for you. So there's this tube that goes into your chest, basically right up to your heart, with just a screw cap on the end, and it seems like it could so easily become infected in between treatments, and I was just constantly worried about that. And I can tell you, I've been off of dialysis for a couple of months now, and it is one thing that I do not miss, and I don't envy anyone who has to go through it. You know, I can't say that I'm glad I went through that whole experience. I still worry about the effect that it had on my body long term, but I do think that experience made me better able to relate to my clients who are recovering from injury or illness, or who simply are very limited in what they can do physically. Recovering from this illness was just a complete slog. It took me months to be able to move fluidly without pain. 6 months later, I'm not yet back to where I was in terms of fitness before the surgery, but I am committed to getting back there, and to be completely honest with you, in some ways, coaching has provided that direction for me and the incentive to keep going and get there eventually. I actually went through a pretty deep depression during that long, slow recovery, and getting back to my coaching work gave me a sense of purpose. And equally as meaningful as the work itself were the relationships with my friends and fellow coaches who checked up on me the entire time I was in the hospital and when I was at home afterwards. As coaches, we call each other our fit fam or fit family, and while I was sick, my coach friends absolutely 100% lived up to that word. They were family. So when I talk about what coaching has done for me, when you look at the numbers on paper, it has provided some extra spending money so my husband and I are able to travel and take an international trip once a year. Last year we took 2. We went to Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, and then we went to the Bahamas on a sailboat for a week. And that by itself is huge for us. But I think after watching this video, you'll understand that coaching really is so much more for me. It is a calling. All of my experiences in life contribute to who I am as a coach and what I bring to coaching. So I'll wrap this up by saying that if you feel passionate about fitness and nutrition, or if you feel that your life experiences also have given you insights that you could use to guide others on their path, I hope you and I can talk more about coaching. Just take a look at the instructions that come along with this video, if it's in the comments or the caption, wherever you're finding the video, and sign up for the free webinar that follows. I would absolutely love to meet you in person via webcam, and I'd love to share more details with you about coaching and answer your questions as well. So I hope to see you there.